For the most wild yet most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I never expect nor solid belief, made indictable I be to expect it, in a case where my very sense read their own evidence, yet made am I not, and very surely to do I not dream, but tomorrow I die. And today I will bring my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, plainly, succinctly, and without comment, a series of mere household events. In their consequence, these events have terrified, have thwarted, have destroyed me, yet I will not appoint to expound them. To me, they have present little but horror. To many they will seem less terribly than baroques. Hereafter, perhaps, some intellect may be found which will reduce my phantoms to the complaints, some intellect more calm, more logical, and far less excitable than my own, which will perceive in the circumstance I detail with eye or will, nothing more than an ordinary succession of very natural causes and effects. From my infancy, I was not for the docility and humane for my disposition. My tenderness of heart was even so capricious as to make me the yes of my companions. I was especially fond of animals, and I was indulged by my parents with a great variety of pets. With these I spent most of my time, and never was so happy as when feeding and caressing them. This peculiarity of character grew with my grown, and in my mind I derive from it one of my principal sources of pleasure. To those who have cherished an affection for a faithful and suggestion dog, I need hardly be at the trouble of planning the natural of the insanity of the gratification thus delivering. There is something in the useful and self-sacrificing love of a brute, which goes directly to the heart of him who has had frequent occasion to this departing friendship and customary friend of mere man. I married early, and was happy to find in my wife a disposition not uncongenial with my own. Observing my partiality for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of procuring those of the most agreeable kind. We had birds, goldfish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. This latter was a remarkably large and beautiful animal, entirely black and suggestions to an astonishing degree. In speaking of his intelligence, my wife, who had heard was not a little tinkery with superstition, made frequent allusion to the ancient popular notion, which regarded all black cats as witches in the ghost. Not that she was ever serious upon this point, and I mentioned the matter of the very reason that it happens just now to be remembered. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he attended me wherever I went about the house. It was ever with difficulty that I could prevent him from following me through the street. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general temperament and character, through the instrumentality of the fiend intemperance, had, I blush to confess it, experienced a radical alteration for the worse. I grew, day by day, more body, more irritable, more ridiculous, of the feeling of others. I suffered myself to use intemperate language to my wife. At length, I even offered her personal violence. My pets, of course, were made to feel the change my disposition. I'm not only negligent, but I will use them. For Pluto, however, I still retain sufficient regard to restrain me from altering him, as I made no scruple of maltreating the rabbits, the monkey, or even the dog, when by accident or through affection they come in my way, but may disagree with me. For what this age is like alcoholic, and language and Pluto, who was now becoming old, and consequently somewhat peevish, even Pluto began to experience the effects of my ill temper. One night, returned home, much intoxicated from one of my hounds about town, I fancied that the cat avoided my presence. I shredded him, when in the fears and my violence, he inflamed a sling upon my hand with his teeth. The fury of a demon instantly possessed me. I knew myself no longer. My original soul seemed at once to take its flight from my body, and a more than fiendish my lovings, yet natural, thrilled every fire of my frame. I took from my waistcoat pocket a penny, opened it, transferred the poor beast by the throat, and deliberately cut one of its eyes from the socket. I blushed, I groaned, I shuddered, while I penned the demon's audacity. When reason returned with the morning, when I had slept off the fumes of the night's bivouac, I experienced a sentiment half of horror, half of remorse for the crime of which I had been guilty. But it was, at best, a filled and equivocal feeling, and the soul remained untouched. I again plunged into excess, and some drowned in the wind and memory of the dead. In the meantime, the cat slowly recovered, the socket of the lost eye present, it is true, a flea for appearance, but he no longer appeared to suffer any pain. He went about the house as usual, but, as I may be expected, fleeing extreme terror at my approach. I had so much of my old hair left as to be at first grieved by this evident dislike on the part of a cruelty which had once so loved me, but his failing son cured which had some irritation, and then came, as if to my final and irrevocable however, the spirit of perverseness. Of this spirit philosophy takes no account, yet I am not more sure than my soul lives, than I am than perversions in one of the private impulses of the human heart, one of the individual primary faculties or sentence which give direction to the character of man. Who has not, 100 times, found himself committing a belief or stupid action, for no other reason than because he knows he should not? Have we not repent inclination in the deed of our best judgment, the violent that which is loud merely because we understand it to be short? Did the spirit of perversion, I say, come to me finally overthrown? It was this infantile longing in its soul to vex itself, to offer violence is its own natural, to do ground for the wrongs, shake only, that urged me to continue and finally to consummate their injury I had inflicted upon the unfailing brute. One morning, in cold blood, I split noose about its neck and hung into the limb of a tree. Hung it with the tears streaming from my eyes, and with the beetles removed at my heart, hung it because I knew that I had loved me, and because I feel it had given me no reason of offense. Hung it because I knew that in so doing I was committing a sin. I did list I was so surprised in my mortal soul as to place it, if such of the thing were possible, even beyond the reach of the identified mercy of the most merciful and most terrible God. On the night of the day on which the most cruel death was done, I was aroused from the sleep by the cry of fire. The curtains of my bed were in flames. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife, a Severan, and myself made of escape from the conflagration. The destruction was complete. My entire well was swallowed up, and I resigned myself trancy to disappear.
I am above the weakness of seeking to establish a sequence of cause and effect between the disaster and the atrocity. But I am totally ashamed of facts, and wish not to leave even a possible living perfect. On the day succeeding the fire, I visited the ruins. The walls, with one exception, had fallen in. This exception was found in a compartment walled, not very thin, which stood about the middle of the house, and against which had rested the head of my bed. The plastering had here, in great measure, resisted the action of the fire, a fact which I attributed to its having been recently spread. About this wall a dense crowd were collected, and many persons seeming to be examining a particular portion of it with very minute and eager attention. The words strange, singular, and other similar expressions excited my curiosity. I approached and saw, as if graved in bold relief upon the white surface, the figure of a giant cat. The impression was given with an accuracy truly marvelous. There was a rope about the animal's neck. When I first beheld this apparition, for I could scarcely regard it as less, my wonder and my terror were extreme. But at length revelation came to mind. The cat, I remember, had been found in a garden adjacent to the house. Upon the alarm of fire, this garden had been immediately foiled by the crowd. By someone of ground the animal must have been cut from the tree and drawn an open window into my chamber. This had probably been done with the view of arousing my round sleep. The falling of other walls had compressed the victim of my crawling into the substance of the freshly spread plaster, that the lime of which, with the flames and the ammonia from the carcass, had then accomplished the portraiture as I saw it. Although I would really have come to my reason, if not altogether to my conscience, for the startling fact used The toilet it did not the less fail to make a deep impression upon my fancy. For months I could not rid myself of the phantasm of the cat. And during this period there came back into my spirit a half sentiment that seemed, but was not remorse. I went so far as to regret the loss of the animal, and to look about me among the boy haunts which I not habitually frequent, for another pet of the same species, and of somewhat similar appearance with which to supply its place. One night, as I sat, held stupefied in a den of more than infamy, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object, reposing upon the head of one of the immense hogsheads of gin, or of rum, which constituted the chief furniture of the apartment. I had been looking steadily at the top of this hogshead for some minutes, and what now caused my surprise was the fact that I had not sooner perceived the object cherub. I approached it and touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, fully as large as Pluto, and closely resembling him in very respectable one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any portion of his body, but this cat had a large, although indefinite splotch of white, covering nearly the whole region of the breast. Upon my touching him, he immediately arose, very loudly driven against my hand, and appeared delighted with my notice. This, then, was the very creature of which I was in search. I at once offered to purchase it of the landlord, but this person made no claim to it, knew nothing of it, had never seen it before. I continued my queries, and when I prepared to go home, the animal impelled a disposition to accompany me. I permitted to do so, occasionally sipping and pouring it as I proceeded. When it reached the house, it domesticated itself at once and became immediately a great favorite with my wife. For my own part, I soon found a dislike to it arising with me. This was just the reverse of what I had anticipated. But I not home or what it was. Its evident fondness for myself really disgusted and annoyed me. By slow degrees, these feelings of disgust and annoyance rose into the bitterness of hatred. I avoided the creature a certain of shame and the remembrance of my former deed of cruelty, preventing me from physical abuse it. I did not, for some weeks, extreme or otherwise violent, use it, but gradually, very gradually, I came to look upon it with unterrible loathing, and to flee suddenly from its odious presence, as from the breath of a pestilence. What I read, no doubt to my hatred of the best, was the discovery on the morning after I brought it home, that, like Pluto, it also had been the prey of one of its aides. This circumstance, however, only endeared to my wife, who, as I have already said, possessed it in a high degree. That humanity of feeling which had once been my distinguishing trait, and the source of many of my simplest and poorest pleasures. With my aversion to this cat, however, its partiality for myself seemed to increase. It followed my footsteps with a pertinacity which it would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. Whenever I sat, it would crouch beneath my chair, or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome caresses. If I arose too well, it would get between my feet and thus nearly throw my down, or fasten its long and sharp claws in my dress, clamber in this manner to my breast. At such times, although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from so doing, partly by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by absolute dread of the beast. This dread was not exactly a dread of physical evil, and yet I shall be at a loss how otherwise to define it. I am almost ashamed to own, yes, even in this felon's cell, I am almost ashamed to own that the terror and horror with which the animal inspired me had been inherited by one of the merest shimmers. It would be possible to conceive. My wife had called my attention more than once to the character of the mark of white hair, of which I have spoken, and which constituted the sole visible difference between the strange bells and the one I had destroyed. The reader will remember that this mark, although large, had been originally very indefinite, but by slow degrees nearly imperceptible, and which for a long time my reason struggled to rate it as fanciful. It has at length assumed a rigorous distinction of all lines. It was now the representation of an object that shuddered to name. And for this apparel I loathed and dreaded, and would have rid myself of the monster, had I dared. It was now I say the image of a Hades, of a ghastly chain of the gallows, a mournful and terrible engine of horror and of crime, of agony and of death. And now was I indeed reached beyond the greatness of mere humanity, and a broad bells whose felon I had contemplatively destroyed, I brought bells to work for me, a man fashioned in the image of the high good, so much of insufferable woe. Alas, neither by day nor by night knew and the blessing of rest any more. During the forming, the creature left me no moment alone, and in the lair I stirred horribly from dreams of unterrible fear to find the hot breath of the thing upon my face, and its boss wage, an incarnate nightmare that I had no power to shake off, incumbent eternally upon my heart.
Beneath the pressure of torments such as this, the fable remained of the God within me succumbed. Every thought became my soul intimated, the darkest and most evil thoughts. The moodiness of my usual temper increased to 100 of all things and of all mankind, while from the sudden, frequent, and ungovernable outburst of a fury to which I now blindly abandoned myself, my uncomplaining wife, alas, was the most usual and the most patient of sufferers. One day she accompanied me upon some household errand into the cellar of the old building which our poverty compelled us in inhabit. The cat followed me down the steep stairs and, nearly throwing me headlong, excited me to madness. Upflighting an axe and forgetting in my wrath the childish treat which she had hitherto stayed my hand, and I a blow at the animal, which, of course, would have proved instantly fatal had it descended as I wished. But this blow was arrested by the hand of my wife. Goaded by the interference into a rage more than demoniacal, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot without a groan. This hideous murder accomplished, I set myself forthwith and with entire deliberation to the task of concealing the body. I knew that I could not remove it from the house, either by day or by night, without the risk of being observed by the neighbors. Many projects entered my mind. At one period I thought of cutting the corpus into minute fragments and destroying them by fire. At another I resolved to dig a grave in the floor of all cellar. Again I deliberated about casting in the well in the yard, about packing in a box, as if merchandise with the usual arrangements, and so getting a porter to take it from the house. Finally, I hit upon what I consider a far better expedient than either of these. I determined to wall up in the cellar, as the monks of the Middle Ages are recorded to have walled up their victims. For a purpose such as this, the cellar was well adapted. Its walls were loosely constructed and had lately been plastered throughout with a rough plaster, which the dampness of the atmosphere had prevented from hindering. Moreover, in one of the walls was a projection caused by a false chimney or fireplace that had been filled up and made to resemble the rest of the cellar. I may not doubt that I could readily displace the bricks at this point, insert the corpse, and wall the whole up as before, so that no aid could detect anything suspicious. And in this calculation I was not deceived. By means of a crowbar I easily dislodged the bricks, and having carefully disposed the body against the inner wall, I prepared it in that position, while with the little trouble I relaid the whole structure as it originally stood. Having procured mortar, sand, and hair with every possible precaution, I prepared a plaster which could not be distinguished from the whole, and with this I very carefully went over the new brickwork. When I had finished, I felt satisfied that all was right. The wall did not present the slightest appearance of having been disturbed. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with a minute's care. I looked around triumphantly and said to myself, "Here at least, then, my labor has not been in vain." My next step was to look for the beast which had been the cause of much wretchedness, for I had at length firmly resolved to put into death. Had I been able to meet within at the moment, there could have been no doubts in his fate, but it appeared that the crafty animal had been alarmed at the violence of my previous anger, and forbore to press it myself in my present mood. It is impossible to describe or to imagine the depth, the blissful sense of relief which the absence of the detested creature occasioned in my bosom. It did not make its appearance during the night, and thus for once night, at least since its introduction into the house, I suddenly and tranquilly slept, slept even with the burden of my murder upon my soul. The second and the third day passed, I still my tormentor came not. Once again I breathed as phrased man. The monster in terror had fled the premises forever. I should behold into it no more. My happiness was supreme. The guilt of my dark deed disturbed me very little. Some few inquiries had been made, but this had been rarely answered. Even a search had been instructed, but of course nothing was to be discovered. I laid upon my future felicity as secure. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, a party of the police came, very unexpectedly, into the house and proceeded again to make rigorous investigation of the premises. Secure, however, in the inscrutability of my place of concealment, I felt no embarrassment whatever. The officers bade me accompany them in their search. They left no nook of corner unexplored. At length, for the third or fourth time, they descend into the cellar. I quivered not in my muscle. My heart beat calmly as the My heart beat calmly as that of one who slumbers in innocence. I walked the cellar from end to end. I folded my arms upon my bosom and roamed easily to and fro. The police were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to depart. The glee at my heart was too strong to be restrained. I burned to say it but one word, by way of triumph, and to render doubly sure their assurance of my guiltlessness. Gentlemen, I said at last, as the party ascended the steps, I delight to have allayed your suspicions. I wish you all health and a little more courtesy. By the by, gentlemen, this this is a very well constructed house. In the rabid desire to say something easily, I scarcely knew what I entered at all. I may say an exceedingly well constructed house. The walls, are you going to, gentlemen? Those walls are solid put together, and here, through the mere frenzy of bravado, I read heavily with a cane which I held in my hand, upon that very portion of the brickwork behind which stood the corpse of the wife of my bosom. But may God shield and deliver me from the fangs of the Arfriend. No sooner had the reverberation of my blows sunk into silence than I was answered by a voice from within the tomb, by a cry, at first muffled and broken like the sobbing of a child, and then quickly swelling into one long, loud, and continuous scream, utterly anomalous and inhuman, a wailing shriek, half of, half of horror and half of triumph, such as might have arisen only but out of hell, conjunctly from the throats of the damned in their agony, and of the demons that exult in the damnation. Of my own thoughts it is folly to speak, swooning I stretched to the opposite wall. For one instant of the party upon the stairs remained motionless through extremity of terror and awe. In the next a dozen stout arms were toiling at the wall. I felt bodily the corpse already redly discayed and clothed with gore, stood erect before the eyes of the spectres. Upon its head, with red extended mouth and solitary eye of fire, sat the hideous beast whose craft had seduced me into murder, and whose informing voice had consigned me to the hangman. I highwalled the monster up within the tomb.